You know, we tend to think of crime and punishment as a pretty straightforward path. You break a law, you face a judge, you serve the time. End of story. But what happens when someone who's already in the middle of paying that price decides to commit another crime? A crime against the sentence itself. Today, we're diving deep into the law of the second crime, the fascinating and complex rules around evading a prison sentence. This isn't just about running away, it's about challenging the entire system of justice.
So let me just start by asking you a question. Really think about this for a second. If you're already in prison, you've already lost your freedom, what could you possibly do to make your situation even worse? What's the next level down from there?
That's right, escaping and then getting caught. Because here's the thing, escaping isn't just breaking a rule, it's an entirely new crime. A fresh offense that comes with its own trial, its own sentence, all piled on top of the time you were already serving. It is quite literally doubling down against the law. The best way to think about this is like a debt. A judge's sentence is a legal debt you owe to society for the harm you've done. Serving your time, that's you paying off the debt, day by day. So evasion of that sentence, well, that's like getting the final invoice, looking at it, and not just refusing to pay, but deciding to burn down the creditor's office on your way out. It's a profound act of defiance against the very authority that issued the debt in the first place. So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll talk about the unbreakable rule, why the system cares so much about this. Then we'll walk through three very different scenarios: the classic breakout, the strange disaster test, and the personal broken promise. After that, we'll compare the legal anatomy of these crimes and wrap up with the final price tag. All right, first things first. Why is escaping prison even a separate crime? I mean, isn't getting caught and dragged back to finish your sentence punishment enough? Well, the law has a very, very clear answer to that. Absolutely not. And the reason is simple. Evasion isn't just about one person being free when they shouldn't be. It's seen as a direct attack on the very foundations of the justice system.
And here's the official definition. It's the crime committed by a convicted person, and that word is so important. This isn't someone awaiting trial. This is someone whose case is done. A final judgment has been made, and they then unlawfully get out of serving that penalty. It's a conscious choice to ignore a final order from a court. It's basically looking at the system and saying, your rules don't apply to me. So you can see this goes way beyond just a simple getaway. Each escape chips away at the pillars of the system. It throws the whole process of lawful detention into chaos. It makes a judge's final decision seem, well, not so final. On a deeper level, it's a direct challenge to the state's power to enforce its own laws. And of course, there's the obvious one. It creates a real risk to public safety. Okay, let's get into our first scenario. This is the one we all know, the one we've seen in 100 movies. This is Article 157, the breakout. We're talking about the classic prison escape, digging a tunnel, scaling a wall, the whole shebang. Now, the legal language here is incredibly precise. Two things have to be true. First, the person has to be a convict. Again, this means a final judgment has been handed down. They're not just a defendant, they're officially guilty. Second, the escape must happen during the term of imprisonment. It's about breaking free from the specific confinement that is their punishment. But get this, the law actually separates breakouts into two tiers. On one hand, you have what's called a simple escape. Maybe a guard forgets to lock a door and the inmate just walks out. Think of this as quietly skipping out on a restaurant bill. But then you have the aggravated escape. This is where things get serious. It involves force, violence, trickery, maybe even getting a guard to help. This is no longer just skipping the bill. This is robbing the cash register on your way out. And you can bet the penalty is a whole lot steeper. Okay, moving on to scenario 2. And honestly, this is one of the most unique and kind of mind-bending parts of the entire penal code. I like to call it the disaster test. This is where the law basically says, okay, in a moment of total chaos, the normal rules are paused. But it comes with a catch. It's a true test of character. So imagine there's a huge fire, a conflagration that's tearing through the prison, or an earthquake literally brings down the walls. The law under Article 158 is actually quite humane. It recognizes that keeping inmates locked inside would be a death sentence. So believe it or not, it allows them to leave the building to save their own lives. At that moment, they're not committing a crime. Survival comes first. And this, right here, is the absolute key to understanding Article 158. The law gives you a free pass to get to safety. It's like a fire drill, right? When the alarm goes off, you're supposed to get out. But the real test isn't about leaving. It's about whether you go to the designated meeting point once the danger has passed.
The crime is not the act of leaving. The crime is the choice to turn that temporary safety into a permanent, illegal escape. So, how long does an inmate get to prove that they intend to follow the rules? The law sets a very specific, non-negotiable deadline: 48 hours. 2 days. This timeline breaks it down perfectly. First, the disaster hits. Second, the inmate leaves, which is perfectly legal. Now, here's the trigger, step 3. An official says the calamity is over. The fire is out, the riot is quelled. That moment is what starts the clock. From that point on, the inmate has exactly 48 hours to surrender to the authorities. If they don't, they've just crossed the line from a survivor into a fugitive. Now for our third and final scenario. And this one is very different. It doesn't involve breaking through a wall or running from an earthquake. This one is all about breaking a promise, a very important promise. This is Article 159, the crime of violating a trust given to you by the highest levels of government. So first, what exactly is a conditional pardon? Well, it's an act of mercy, usually from a president or a governor, that lets a convict out of prison early. But it's not a get-out-of-jail-free card. It always comes with conditions, strings attached. For example, a condition could be, you are forbidden from ever returning to this city, or you must report to an officer once a week. And that's where the crime kicks in. Article 159 is all about what happens when you break that deal. Think of it like this. You get a full-ride scholarship to your dream university, but the condition is you have to keep a B+ average. The scholarship is your freedom. The grade requirement is the condition. The second your GPA drops to a B, you've broken the deal and you lose the scholarship. It's the same here. You violate a condition of your pardon, you step foot in that forbidden city, and you've just committed a new crime. Okay, so we've got our 3 big scenarios: the breakout, the disaster test, and the broken promise. Now let's put on our lab coats and get a little technical. We're going to put these crimes under the microscope and look at their legal DNA to see exactly what makes them different. To do that, we just need to know 2 key legal terms. First is actus reus. It's Latin, but it just means the guilty act. It's the physical thing you did: the running, the failing to come back, the entering a city. The second is mens rea. This is the guilty mind. It's all about your intention. Did you mean to escape? Did you knowingly break the rule? For a crime to stick, you almost always need both the guilty act and the guilty mind. And this chart just lays it all out beautifully. Look at the act. For a breakout, the act is escaping. But for the disaster, the act is the failure to surrender. Totally different actions. And check out the mindset. The prosecutor has to prove a different kind of intent for each one: the intent to escape, the intent not to return, or the intent to violate a condition. Each crime has its own unique fingerprint, defined by who the offender is, what they did, what they were thinking, and the circumstances surrounding it all. All right, so we've dissected the crimes. We know the what and the why. But let's get to the bottom line. What are the consequences? How does the law actually punish these different types of evasion? It's time to look at the final price tag. This table spells it out pretty clearly. That term, prisión correccional, is just a legal category for a medium-tier felony with sentences that can go up to 6 years. Now look at the numbers. A simple escape can add a huge chunk of time. A forced escape, the minimum penalty is higher, which shows the law sees it as a much more serious offense. The failure to return after a disaster is calculated totally differently. It adds a fraction of your remaining time, and it's capped at 6 months. And breaking a pardon has its own specific and lighter sentence. This chart makes the comparison pop. You can see right away that breaking out of prison, whether simply or with force, is what the law considers the most serious offense. It can add up to 6 years to your sentence. Violating a pardon is still serious, but the maximum penalty is significantly lower. This tells you exactly what the justice system values most: maintaining physical control and the integrity of its institutions. So after all that, what's the one big idea you should walk away with? It's this: the crime of evasion is all about the details. The law isn't just handing out punishment because an inmate is free when they shouldn't be. It's looking very closely at how they got free. Did they use violence? Did they take advantage of a crisis? Or did they betray a sacred trust? Every path to illegal freedom has its own story and its own unique price tag. And that leaves us with one final tough question to chew on. Go back to that disaster scenario. The prison is in ruins. The city is in chaos. Maybe your family lives nearby, and you don't know if they're safe. The law gives you 48 hours to turn yourself in. Just 2 days to choose between your freedom, your family, and your legal duty. Is that really a fair test of someone's character? That's something to think about.